and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that little break. I hope you had a great session this afternoon. I've learned loads. Well, that's unsurprising because although I know a lot about the sector, it isn't my sector. Thankfully, it is the people who are on this panel. This is what they do. And some of them, they're actually doing it as we speak. So I'm going to introduce the panel to you. First up, we've got Doug Wanstall. Doug, along with his father and uncle, is a mixed farmer based near Ashford in Kent, free-range eggs, beef and arable enterprises. They've diversified their interests into farm retail, weddings and events, and involvement in fresh produce distribution as well. Regeneration Earth has developed following a combined 10 years of incubation and motivated by a desire for farmers to be at the forefront of the burgeoning, and it doesn't show any signs of going anything other than bigger, carbon market. The business acts as the conduit between those that have residual CO2 emissions and those that need to offset those. Farmers and landowners who, through a range of projects and a move to regenerative farming and agricultural practices, can sequester that carbon into soils and natural building materials. Doug, welcome. And then we've got John Tucker. John, it's a joy to see you again. John is a chartered forester with 40 years experience of multi-purpose forestry. He's worked for the Woodland Trust since 1994 in a variety of forestry management roles with a strong focus on woodland creation since 2010. His current role is Director of Woodland Outreach, focusing on creation and restoration work with a wide variety of farmers and landowners. John, did you work? I live right in the middle of the National Forest. Did you do any of the work here 25 years ago when it all began?
Me personally, no, but the organisation has got quite a large number of sites within the National Forest. So yes, we've got quite a land. It's
amazing the difference it's made. It's healed the landscape in ways that people around here would never have believed when it was all open cast. So thank you for that. And then last but not least, we haven't just got Emma and Ian. I mean, we have got Emma Robinson and Ian O'Reilly. We've got Emma, Ian, 3 cows and a pig in the trailer just behind them, because this is the modern farming, right? Multitasking. They're picking stuff up. They're having to work so hard because their farm isn't big enough anymore. They now need to work with a cooperative of other farmers to pull produce in to feed their own retail establishment, which is amazing. And they are genuinely near Darlington mid-trip. So welcome and thank you for that. And look, Emma and Ian, they sit on a farm that's been in the same family for 500 years. I'm going to say it again. I said it 3 times the other day. 500 years. I've been in this house 10 years. That's the longest I've been in this house. You've been on that land for 500 years. That's incredible. Farming across the Pennine, Lancashire and Yorkshire borders. Gazegill farmers remained under the watchful eye of the Robinson family all that time. The biological heritage hay meadows produce a colourful display and nutritious and herb-rich diet year on year, which is helped by their sensitive management. Their farming stance is about balance, nature, and they have a real passion for organic farming. So, Ian, Emma, welcome and thank you for all the work that you do. So, look, that was a fascinating session, and I loved every single one of your presentations for different reasons. But I'm going to start with trees. I'm going to start with trees, and I'm going to start with you, John. One of my favorite reads last year was a book by Richard Powers called The Overstory, which was the Understory, sorry, or was the Overstory, one or the other, which is all about the way trees communicate to each other, which in turn is based on the book called The Hidden Life of Trees, the way that trees communicate. They're utterly magical. John, can you just give me a 101 on how trees communicate and what we didn't know?
Yeah. So one of my favorite books from last year was by Merlin Sheldrake, talking about Mycorrhizae. So there's so much, we're barely scratching the surface about mycorrhizae and what's going on underground. So if you think about tree roots and how they're connected, the mycorrhizae are playing a key role in that. And the mycorrhizae, they need the roots to survive because they can't get sort of nutrients themselves, but they provide so many benefits in terms of nutrient supply, other nutrient supply, and so on. So there's a particular type of mycorrhizae that will help other trees grow in the vicinity, for example. So if you're planting a bare field, then those mycorrhizae aren't there. So new trees can sometimes struggle to sort of establish themselves. So as I say, we're only really touching the surface at the moment. And of course, let's think about things like truffles. They are something that mycorrhizae, fungi, and I'm fascinated by the fact that, most of the black truffles in the world are from cultivated tree plantations. They're not actually from the wild. So yeah, it's an area we really need to do far more research in at the moment. So much we don't know about it, but so much that we could benefit from.
And that's a really interesting point about truffles. I've got a good friend who has a truffle farming business. They do exactly what you say. They inoculate tree roots across the south of France, and they're able not just to sell, they're basically used as an investment tool now. That they sell the truffles, or they sell them on your behalf and give you the income. But the thing that made it all work was the carbon capture benefits from the new planting. So you've got these many different income streams, and this is this guy is really interesting, but he's not that bothered about agriculture. He's bothered about investment, but it doesn't matter because he's growing good by doing good. And I think that's really interesting. And Doug, that pushes me straight into you. I wrote this question down at exactly the same time as somebody else answered it, and I think it's a cracking question. So the Paulownia is an incredible species, fast growing. You can quite clearly see the benefits to the wood that you're creating and the carbon benefits. How does it interact with other trees and other biodiversity? And most importantly, just hearing what we've heard from John about the mycorrhizae, how can we then structure the soil? Are we able to build in second plants or secondary planting to enable your trees to be adopted more successfully?
Yeah, so Paulownia aren't a particularly competitive species, nor are they very sociable. They don't like to be touched by other trees, and it directly affects, a bit like me sometimes. It can affect their growth habit, but essentially they can very easily and very much do grow in mixed plantations, and there's nothing to prevent us, and in fact we actively are planting them alongside. In Kent we're looking at planting them with species that we would see down here, sort of chestnut and hazel, that sort of thing. We're mixing in with plantations just to increase the levels of biodiversity within an agroforestry system. So yeah, look, they mix very well. They won't outcompete other species, and can live very happily alongside, what people would see to be more traditional species of tree for the UK.
So there's no issue, because I mean, one of the things I inherited in my garden was this huge eucalyptus tree, which absolutely trashed the soil, dried it out, because they're supposed to be growing in places with no water, and Leicestershire's got quite a lot of water, not quite as much as the west of the country, but a lot, and it absolutely killed everything else. You're not seeing that kind of challenge with these species.
No, definitely not. No.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. And then if we then shift to Emma and Ian, one of the things that I really love about what you do, and I alluded to this when I was talking about your 3 cows and a pig that are just in your trailer, controlling retail channels. In order to make regenerative agriculture pay properly, you need to get greater income per kilo of product or per litre of product. Controlling the retail channel is the absolute key to increasing value. And you seem to have done that really successfully. How can you advise other farmers who are wanting to go direct to market? How can you advise them to begin their journey?
I think the first thing is believe in your product, because if you're passionate about something, people will buy it. They want to buy into it. And I think we've met so many farmers over our journey that look at farming as a way of life and forget to actually look at it as a business still. You're a farm business. You're there to make money. You're there to survive. But yeah, the biggest thing I think, when we started changing from a wholesale to a retail operation, it's a daunting task. So we just broke it down bit by bit. We did the bits we could do first off. We hired in help where we needed it. We outsourced butchery and things like that. And slowly but surely, you build on all those successes and you start to bring everything back in-house. All the profit centers are back in-house, which is, it allows us to invest far more into the farm, the nature, renewables, than we would have ever done if we'd just carried on selling to
but
a
the
milk
main
company.
thing was our passion, our belief in our products, and putting in hours, driving it forward just to take out that middleman so we could retain the extra profit for ourselves. It's been hard work to get here, but now we've done it, and we feel that we're now helping other farms along our journey. And if they've not got somewhere to sell their produce, they can use our online web presence.
We
join
have
in with ours.
a bit of a fair trade sort of partnership. We partner with about 15 different farms now, where they name the price. It's not about us telling them what we're going to pay for something. It's what do you want for it, and that is so alien in agriculture. It's one of the only industries where you're told the price of everything you buy, and you're told the price of everything you sell. So it's quite a nice position to be in.
I hear that. I used to be head of sustainability for ASDA 20 odd years ago, and watching the way deals were done, they weren't always done nicely, and I can completely see the benefit in what you're doing. And it probes another question for me, kind of almost like, and the irony, of course, is I'm about to mention the word ASDA again. These kind of collectives of farmers, and of course, ASDA stood for Associated Dairies originally, bringing people together to give them a greater market presence. Is that where you're going to head as a couple, or are you so deeply embedded in the soil that you can't lift your gaze too high?
No, I think growth is key for us. We're not going to take the foot off the accelerator now. We want to continue to grow the company, but
our main passion is our farm.
Yeah,
and we don't want to really change our farm in any shape or form. But if we can help other farms to rewild or put in some more nature reserves by just sharing what we've already pushed to do,
given a fair price for produce, that's key for us. But it is about that. It's about trade partnerships that suit everyone. We don't alter our retail price as the year goes on for lamb. Why should the buyer's price alter? And it's not quite fair. So we like to think that we build up a great network of like-minded, and they're all places just like ours. That they pick up the phone, they say we've got 3 Aberdeen Angus sat in a trailer not 10 foot from us. When can you collect them? And it's a good position to be in. It's a nice position.
It's a refreshing position to hear about. It really is. And look, if I'm coming back to you now, Doug, one of the things that you said, you said 97% of Britain's hay meadows have been lost. That's staggering. Have I got that figure right?
Sorry, that wasn't me.
I think the figure's right, but I think it was John who said it.
Oh, John, apologies.
No, not me.
Don't ever shuffle your notes. John, is that correct?
It wasn't me. Sorry, Mark.
Doug, was that correct? Anyone claiming that stat?
I'll claim it. I know I did. It's 97% of all hay meadows have been lost now in the UK. So the big Jubilee hay meadow project was during the last Queen's Jubilee, but we're still not seeing the amount of grass come back into hay production as we really need to for pollinators.
Pollinators need those hay meadows. We've got to do something about it. We have to change.
That's what I was going to ask. The actual cost of that, beyond money, the cost of that, the externality cost of that is massive. Who accounts for that? Who pays that cost for that loss?
Essentially, every living thing on the planet will eventually pay the cost. As an ecosystem starts to break down, systems around it start to fail as well. The hay meadow. I mean, when we look at our hay meadows, 80 plus species of plant, and from very common grasses to some quite rare plants and orchids, but they're only there because it's sensitively managed. And I think the price is not financial. The price is what we lose and cannot recover.
Biodiversity is the world's bloodline. We need it. And our grasses, they don't just have an insect that lives off them. They help each other. One will feed the other. They're nitrogen rich in their own roots. And
there's all your plants sort of help feed everything else. And your yellow rattle is a bit more thirsty. It starves out the grass. It allows other smaller species of flower to establish. So it's a great symbiosis of watching of nature working, and It's just lovely to watch and see. We're looking forward to it now. Get up there in June and get into Bottom Meadow and really start counting the species and, waiting for the meadow sweet to flower. Everything else is just about gone to seed and you're ready to cut. So
when everyone around us, we are surrounded by intense factory farms, and they take all of the grass before it's gone to seed. All the ground nesting birds have gone, the habitat's gone. It's such a loss. But they'll be going around putting on chemical fertilizers and slurry, and the wash off into rivers is just horrendous.
Yeah, it has a real knock-on effect. That's the cost.
And that's what I was trying to get to. It's not the direct cost; it's this indirect kind of like spiraling, barreling cost that goes down the river and affects everything all the way to the sea. And I've got quite a specific question for John Tucker, but I'm also going to flip it to Doug as well in a weird way. So, John, this question's coming from Robert Furness. Even though they may struggle to grow in the UK, what are your thoughts on Moringa trees and their ability to sequester approximately 20 times more carbon than most other trees?
Yeah, good question. I didn't have time to get to my books. I'm not familiar with Moringa, so I can't answer that question specifically, but just sort of turning it round a bit, just getting people to think about, they say, this mantra, right tree, right place. And it's really trying to think about the site that you're wanting to put trees on, understanding the needs of those trees, and will the two meet? So, understanding the soils, understanding the exposure, temperatures across the year. We can grow a wide range of trees across the UK, and Doug with Paulownia is a really good example of that. It's a fabulous tree, but you've got to think about your own site. So, I'd need to unpick and study the needs of Moringa more before I can answer that directly.
And it has. I mean, it's a really interesting crop in many other ways. Massive herbal benefit and a huge value. And Doug, that then got me thinking about Paulownia and as well as trapping carbon and being a wood. Are there any herbal or are there any other medical links that can come from that tree? And how do you do the business case for Paulownia? Where do you draw the line on what the income is?
Oh, crikey. Okay, we'll start with the Moringa tree. That will yield approximately 6 tonne a hectare of fresh leaf per season, whereas Paulownia, when they get to about year 5-6, are yielding about 10 tonnes per hectare of fresh leaf. So it gives you a bit of an idea that Paulownia, simply in leaf matter, is a little bit ahead of the Moringa. The Paulownia does have, it's perceived to have antibacterial properties in the leaves, but to be fair, it's fairly unfounded. We haven't done the research into that. It also produces a very, very good quality honey, which is meant to have similar properties to New Zealand Manuka honey. And the New Zealanders will always say that their tea tree honey is always better than everybody else's tea tree honey. And they may have a point, but Paulownia is meant to be very similar. But as far as we are focusing the economic return of Paulownia on the timber production and the carbon sequestration. Look, we've got endless, when the leaves drop, we can harvest those and bale those up and feed them to cattle. They're very palatable, high protein content. So they do have benefits to livestock production as well. But at the moment, we're focusing on the timber because we believe that the timber offers the best solution in terms of an economic return to the farmer. But also its ability to sequester carbon and produce high quality timber.
I get that completely, but do you think with that comes a risk that we will again drive away diversity and concentrate on one part of that deal, or do you think that we're able to balance that we're able to learn from the mistakes that we've made and look at things more holistically, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and we often have the accusation leveled at us of a single species, but actually we're putting these in agroforestry systems so that where you would have had a wheat field with one species of crop in it, we've now got 2 because we've got the Paulownia in there. But actually, we're planting them in 2-meter strips with grasses, wildflowers, and other species of tree, in order that we are maximising the benefits towards biodiversity decline reversal, but also ensuring that we're maximising the other benefits, such as phosphate mitigation, cleansing water courses. There's so many benefits, and just by adding a single species into a single species of what was a monocrop is twice as good as it was before. But our system is going further than that, and ensuring that we're planting local species that you'd expect. When I say local, I mean local to Kent. And if it was in Yorkshire, it would be we would be working with people to find out what species we need to be planting in Yorkshire.
And that leads me into a question that I've got for Emma and Ian, actually. So, and thank you for that. It sounds like we have learned that lesson. So you talked about the work that you've been doing in terms of getting no yield drop despite a species shuffling and beginning to build more broad species. And that's exactly what Doug's been talking about in cooperation with tree growing. How do we, species working together is quite clearly the way forward. How do we build a knowledge bank that people watching, farmers watching, can then tap into?
I think traditionally that knowledge bank was there, but it was handed, generation to generation. There are some great resources around us. The AOMB has got, a farm partnership scheme running. They've got some great experts on that look at local, flora and fauna, and they work, with what works in Lancashire or Pennine Lancashire. So, it's as specific as saying, our meadows are upland meadows, Pennine Lancashire, Yorkshire borders. They know what works. So that the advice that we find is often local, it's often there, but you just need to tap into it.
And we've forgotten what we knew. John.
There are some really great sort of advice places out there in terms of trees, Affinet, Farm Woodland Forum, Agricology. I've just done a few webinars this week, one with the Organic Horticultural Alliance, Organic Growers Alliance, and the knowledge that was in that on the chat function was fantastic, and I always say to people, get out, talk to people who've done it before, talk to people who are trying things. There's so much knowledge out there. There were a couple of zookeepers that I've been talking to. I've got a record of about any number of tree species that they've been feeding to zoo animals over the course of the last 6 years. And it is a fantastic resource, thinking about the nutrient content of all sorts of unusual fodder trees, and it's there, and they're just desperate for people to use that resource. So I think it's www.zooplants.net. Go and have a look at it. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. We'll put that in the notes. Thank you very much for that. And we've got a question, a couple of questions on organic, actually. So I'm going to go to you, Ian, and Emma. So the first question is, and it's from Charles Ross, who is a prolific question asker, and I quite like that. He works in textiles, right? He works in taking fiber and turning it into clothing. And he says, how much difference is there to switch from regenerative to regenerative organic? And then I'm going to tape on the end of that, what support for organic farming is there in the UK now? And how has Brexit changed that? So what's the difference in terms of moving from regenerative to regenerative organic, and what support can we get?
I would say it's a small step. It's a very, very small step. A lot of people talk to us about converting organic. What do we need to do? And the first thing I've always said to them is get your head around it, convert your head first, understand it, look at it. Some of the things that we do are, well, they're a bit alien to
it's farming 100 years ago. It's just going back to how our ancestors did it. It is a bit odd.
I think a lot of it is it's a very, very small step. Regenerative is very close to. It's all about nature. It's all about biodiversity. That's why people farm regeneratively.
We inherited an old farm.
Yeah, we were just lucky. It was a lottery. I mean, going forward post Brexit, though, the concern, with the agricultural bill going through at the minute, DEFRA has not got they haven't got the stomach at the minute to support ecological or nature-led farming, regenerative farming, and this is not just organic. This will start to affect regenerative as well. Up until now, schemes like countryside stewardship largely works very well for the organic sector. But the proposed elms that with 3 tiers that are so loosely connected, there is not going to be a whole farm approach in England that is supported in the organic sector. Scotland, Wales, yes, they've set out that they want a whole farm approach, and there's going to be support there. To me, if we are responsible for public goods, and I say that very, very openly, that we are custodians of that land. We're current custodians, we're the current baton holder, but it's the public that sees the benefit from well-managed soils. It's the public that sees the benefit from clean watercourses, and we're responsible for looking after those. And I think doing that, it should be that there is some recompense to help to encourage people to do these things. I mean, we laid the amount of hedges we've laid over the last 10 years, and how many we set out to lay. It's fantastic. But again, most of that we've done off our own back with very, very little help. But we've created habitat. So for us, it was what we used our basic payment for environmental projects. But yeah, going forward, it's quite concerning. There doesn't seem to be the stomach in DEFRA to stand up and say organic or regenerative is important enough. It seems to be too niche.
I said it yesterday. There's a vacuum there. We've got a couple of quick fire questions actually, which I think we can do in a couple of words. So first off, one for John Tucker. John, which trees grow best alongside a river to prevent erosion?
Quick answer would be things like alder, willow, so white willow, goat willow. I put in my talk, goat willow starting to flower at the moment, so it's great for pollination. Eared willow if you're further north. Aspen is really good as well. I just found out today that aspen actually retains a lot of phosphate, takes up a lot of phosphate out of the ground, so that can be really good. And unlike many other species, it doesn't sort of put it back into the ground. So if you want to get rid of phosphate before it's running into riparian systems, aspen is your tree.
Get some aspen in. And then a really quick one as well for Doug. Is Paulownia a tree? Is it a good tree for paper production?
The honest answer to that question is I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is. If I could come back to you, I would.
Of course, by all means, come back to us. And then with Emma and Ian, a really quick fire question for you. Are food co-ops a good place to start for farmers looking to establish their own retail business?
Yeah, there's some great food hubs out there, and people that connect farms to consumers. They are a good start. Farmers markets are still a really good place to get your products out there, and it was where our journey started.
Our customer base is still growing, so people out there are looking, and if someone says I'm here, come and buy from me direct, then they will. You've just got to say you're there.
Brilliant. Let people know you're there. And really quickly, one word answer each. I'm going to go around in a circle. Are you optimistic about the way agriculture is going? Yes or no? Ian and Emma?
Yes, I am optimistic.
I don't know.
Doug?
A big yes.
Brilliant. And John?
In terms of agroforestry, a huge yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'll take that, because having spoken to you and having seen through this little screen everything that's going on at the moment, I'm increasingly positive. And I'm going to hand over to Finian Makepeace now. We're going to go back to the main auditorium and then jump into Finian's talk. Finian is he's going to introduce himself, but he's part of a movement in the US that has woken everybody up from their sofas by watching the film Kiss the Ground. Thank you, John. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for watching. Hop back into the auditorium and join in with Finian. Thank you.
Thank you.